Alrighty, if you're able to grab your seats, that'd be fantastic. We'll kick off with this next session, leading us into lunch. So we've got Kerry here from the Red Cross, talking to us about emergency ready and what they do. So I think it's a bit of a practical session. So I'll hand over to you and we'll go from there. Please welcome Kerry.
I took on a job with Red Cross 5 or 6 years ago. My work area in the emergency services space, which is what I am in. So my office starts at Lithgow, Takara, out to Broken Hill, then Burke, Moree, nearly to the border, up to Tamworth.
And you got a power.
That's exactly right. I could jog it if I was fit enough. So that's the space that I work in. I look after all the volunteers in those areas, all the emergencies that have happened, and we've had quite a few. Spent 6 months at Eugowra when the floods went through there. And just my role in that particular flood was just to roll around on the floor with the preschool kids so the parents could talk without having little ears listening in to everything. And one little bloke that I'd lay down and do jigsaw puzzles, he'd share with one group of kids, but he would not share with anyone else. And I said, oh, yeah, go on. He said they didn't lose anything, they lived up on the hill. So that's why we go into schools and do a pillowcase, because just from those kids standing around, they absorbed so much from the community of what they heard, and they decided how they would sort of deal things out. So we have a program that we go into the schools. It's called the Pillowcase Program. It started in America. Walt Disney saw some university students running out of the uni and just with pillowcases over their shoulders, because that's all they had. They didn't have sort of luggage and things to pack and didn't have the time. So we go into the schools. Australia Post now, they're our major sponsor for the pillowcases. So this is what we take into the schools. The kids get to take home a pillowcase. They get to design the pillowcase. But prior to them being given that, what we do with them is needs and wants cards. So what do you want to take if you have to leave your house or property or business compared to what you need to take? So it's a bit like if you're packing a kit, what you need and what you want is totally different. So today's workshops, it's about emergency ready, okay? And then we'll sort of have a little bit more discussion about being prepared once we've finished some slides. Okay? Thank you. So Australian Red Cross acknowledges the traditional owners of this land and their ancestors and elders past and present. Thank you. Housekeeping, you all know where the toilets and everything else are. So they're the type of things that we're going to do, like the icebreakers, emergencies and their impacts, why we should prepare, how we can prepare, and reflection and next steps, what you take away from today. Okay. Does anybody like doing icebreakers? Okay, flip that side, please. So emergencies are changing. We've all sort of seen that. I remember I'd have holidays with my grandmother and the blankets got brought out on a certain date for beds and they got put away at a certain date. And there happened to be a chilly day in between. You just cuddled up with another grandchild because she refused to, because most times it stayed exactly the same all the time, but it's not like that now. So they're becoming more frequent and more intense. They impact people's lives and communities. Emergencies are becoming more expensive as well. Thank you. All right. How can being prepared help? Can save your life, can help you avoid danger, can help you cope in an emergency, can help you recover with less long-term stress, can reduce the disruption in your life, can save you money in the long term, has everyday benefits. It can make you adaptable, helps to build stronger communities, and helps you to deal with everyday crisis. Thank you. So can you just go back to that previous slide for me? Yep. So what's one way, what would be your first step on how we can prepare? Anybody?
Anticipate certain issues, problems.
Yeah?
Just get everything that you need as far as what you've got to have, your very important papers and everything else.
Right.
And also a portable radio so you can listen in to what's going on.
Yeah. Okay.
Write a list.
Write a list of
Necessities.
necessities. Okay. All right. So protect what matters most, and that will be different for everybody. What I see as important would be totally different to everybody else in this room, because I already have a kit and everything else that we'll talk about after, but there's only one thing I need out of my house, and that's a picture frame with my older brother. He was a truck driver and he was killed, and that's the only thing. If I get nothing else out of my house, I'm fine with that. But I've already prepared everything else. So, and we find a lot of times people go back into burning buildings or try to get back into places where it's flooded, and we've often heard that people have been washed away or have been injured because it's something that they really needed. So being prepared informs people, focuses on the impact of emergencies beyond survival, informed by a body, all this has been informed by a body of research and evidence, and your ready plan should reflect your life and things that matter to you most. So you'll be able to see in the satchels that I've given you, there is a ready plan booklet that we'll sort of go through a bit later on. There's Get Prepared apps that can be used. There's a number of them. All different organisations have got all different apps. This is the Red Cross, and we've partnered up with NRMA. They're funding us to come out, and I do realise some people are not keen on NRMA, but they're helping Red Cross get it out into the communities to start people thinking about the preparedness in the long term. Right, so getting prepared, the 4 steps: get in the know, get connected, get organised, and get packing. Yep. Okay. So prepare your mind. Do we find when we're calm we can think more clearly? Yes? No? Because normally I know with myself, if I haven't prepared to do something, you seem to be just chucking things around and rushing and to sort of get out the door to go somewhere, or even minor things, right? So when we're calm, we think more clearly. When we think more clearly, we can make better decisions. So anticipate, because there'll be stress and fear. The identity, which is feelings and thoughts. Manage, which is breathing and mindfulness, which we teach the kids in the schools this as well, especially the breathing part, how they can learn to stay calm. Thank you. So this is what we teach, show the kids how to do this, and I know it sounds like this is a child's exercise, but we do them with men, women, elderly, young. Some people get the effect from it, some still think it's a bit ridiculous. But we use the 5-finger breathing. Has anybody heard of the 5-finger breathing? Yep? Okay. Next slide, please. All right. So 5-finger breathing is just using your hand. Does everybody want to have a go at it, or you still think it's... All right. Go on, put your hand up. Okay. So what I want you to do, just when I say breathe in, breathe in. When I say breathe out, breathe out. And what we do is we breathe in and we go up 1 finger. So run your hand up your finger, and then when it's coming down, you breathe out. And you take a breath in and then a breath out. A breath in and a breath out. And a breath in and a breath out. And a breath in and a breath out. So did anybody feel any different? You know, richer? Anything like that? All right? But we find with children, because they've got to slow their brain down, because they've got to concentrate on what they need to do and what they, right? And that's why we use it. And I have used it on adults in evacuation centres and even recovery centres, because even though they're pulling faces at me, then they start to concentrate, and you can just see that it gives their mind just that few seconds of a break about everything that's happened to them before they sat down. Right. Yes, thank you. Okay, so does everybody in this room know what your risks are in your areas? Yep. What are some of the risks? Yep. Theft? Yeah. I never ever thought I'd see the day it would snow in Peak Hill, but I've actually seen that. Didn't last long, but it was just a massive storm that just dropped snow in our backyard. And half hour later was just gone. And then you sort of, did I really see that? That people took photos so we could prove it. So we have storms, we have fires, we have bushfires, we have house fires. Some of the house fires are sort of electrical faults. Some aren't. Some are deliberately lit. Can you think of any other emergencies that we know? Some of the risks around town.
Car accidents.
Car accidents, yes. Yeah.
Farm accidents in general.
Farm accidents, yes.
Motorbikes in particular.
Yep. And 4-wheelers, yeah. The 2-wheelers, 4-wheelers, yeah. I know when I was growing up, we were on a property and we'd burn around the dam in an old ute, and 2 of us would get in, and it was one person's job to pull on the handbrake so that the driver could stop the vehicle. How we never ever got killed, I'll never know if my kids or my grandkids did that. But who in this room hasn't done something that you think now, gee, lucky to get out of that one? No. And that's the other thing that we sort of talk to kids about, sort of about thinking before you do something, because it's still going to be there tomorrow. Like, a lot of us say it's got to be done today because I've got other stuff to do, and sometimes we rush to do things, and it might be that we don't switch something off, or we leave the house and haven't checked the fire, or any of those simple little things, because we've always done that. And it's always been right when we've got home. Thank you. So in your ready plan, so in those bags that I've given you, so each of them, so you can see on the slides, I've given you the ready plan light, because the other one's so thick, but it's just a more bigger version than what you've got. But it'll give you what page to look things up. So there's no good me testing you on this now because you've already read it, but the ABC is the only official station for emergencies. Right? And that's where we really hammer the kids so they learn what the ABC is. It's not just the alphabet, because young ones don't listen to radios and things like that. So we sort of do samples with them about the ABC it's the truth. All right. Next slide, please. All right. In your books as well, there's an assessment workbook on page 12 to 15. And you can go through there at your own speed in that booklet. You can, some might just rush through it so it's done, but it's more to sort of sit down with the whole family. And also, if your neighbour's looking after your, say, property or house, if you've gone away on holidays, include them in what your plan is, because they may sort of step into something that they didn't even know. They just said, yeah, we'll look after your place. But without them having a rounded idea of what your plan is, they don't know what you want if you've had to leave. Right? Okay, so it's that getting connected, speaking to the police, the fireys, talking to the kids, talking to businesses, all of those type of things. So the grocery store, the conversation we sort of had with a few of the people up in the north was, what do you know about the grocery store? Do they get flooded first? So can you still get food if you're sort of flooded? What's the plan? Do SES going to take the boat over and deliver to you if you get stranded over there? Because you don't want to be buying a whole heap of food that's going to go off if there's a mechanism with the emergency services to deliver those things to you. So it's having those conversations with all the different sectors of the community. All right, thank you. Okay, meeting places, child pickups. So does Narromine have like an official meeting place if there was an emergency? No?
Maybe the showground because it's high.
Maybe, yeah. But can you see where I'm sort of trying to direct you? You probably know, I don't know whether you know everybody in Narromine. I used to know everybody in Peak-Hill until COVID hit. I would only know about half the people now. So once COVID hit and people could work anywhere, and here a few years ago, just after COVID, at Christmas time, I always give Christmas cards to our street, and I got one return saying, thank you, but I don't know you. I thought, why wouldn't you just rip it up? So now I know that yeah. So those type of things. COVID changed a lot of things because you could you'd know if you were away and something happened, one of your neighbours would just sort of jump in, or if they saw your gate open out on the farm and they knew you always closed it, they'd just close it. Well, that sort of thing still happens to a certain extent, but there is so many new people moving to town. Yeah, as I said, even to give a Christmas card back because they didn't know me. So. And child pickup, can I just go back one? Sorry. Oh, sorry, I'm picking on him. Child pickup. So it doesn't happen so much here, but we found in the mountains, the Blue Mountains, when the fires were in the Blue Mountains, the preschools got cut off from the parents because the parents either went down into Sydney to work or Lithgow to work. So we do a program with preschools now in that event, if they're cut off, how they would deal with it and how the emergency services would work with them. Because parents tried to get there and tried to sort of drive through fires and things like that. So you probably don't have that issue here, but you may never have it. But then you'd only need it to happen once where you couldn't go and pick up your child or your grandchild or whatever. So another conversation. All right. Household contents, important contacts, I mean. So each one of these pages will sort of help you go through your planning stage, and it'll sort of just make you think a little bit more about what you need to do in your plan. So next page, please. Next page. So getting organised. A medical plan, medications, medical aids. So in the event, say if as what we call at Red Cross, a single incident, the chemist shop burns down. Sorry if anybody in the room owns the chemist shop. But do you have a backup plan if something like that happens? Right? Or if you get caught somewhere and you don't have your scripts, do you know what the plan is with your chemist to be able to forward those on? Right? And that was another big thing in the floods up north was when I was at one of the floods in Moree, it flooded on the opposite side of the river to what it always floods. So all the shops were sort of, you couldn't get to them because they were all flooded, and people were out of medication. So then they had to try and sit everybody down and work it all out and then ferry them by boat or fly them in, the medication in and that type of thing. All right. Animal plan. So being farmers, you've got a plan for all your stock. So if there was a flood or a fire, have you already got a plan in place? Who's going to move the stock? How it's going to get moved? You've won lotto and you haven't sold out yet, but you've won lotto and you've gone overseas. Do you have a plan that someone else knows about? Yeah. So it's that discussion again. Okay, next one. All right, so insurance. So how many in this room you've taken out insurance and then you've put it in the cupboard and you haven't gone back to it for a couple of years to update it? Right? Does everybody... Because I know I got into the habit of regularly doing it, but then I'm in the process of doing it again because I saw a photo at the back of our house into our backyard on the internet with my house up for sale, and it was valued at $460,000, and somebody was going to try and sell it on us because we didn't put it on there. And that's when I spoke to the real estate. Did they have that happening in a lot of places. And they said, yeah, it's happening quite regularly. People are taking photos and they're just putting them up online for sale. And I said to him, our place wouldn't be valued at that. He said, yeah. He said, if I was to sell that tomorrow, he said, you'd be getting that. And I said, it's peak hill. There's no way you would. But he said, yeah, because we've had so many city people move to the country areas, house prices in Peak Hill are ridiculous in price. So now I've got to go back to our insurance to make sure I've got the proper coverage. Because when we first got our house, it was a brand new Department of Housing house, a brick house, and then we got the option to buy it for $45,000. And that was in 95, and yeah. So it's that going back, and you'd be surprised if you looked, because you look at contents and you look at your house, who in this room would look at their clothes to put in their insurance policy? So if you work out a set of clothes a day, and how many in this room has, say, 10 pairs of shoes? Some would probably have more, oh, you'd be surprised. My mother and father, who are in their 90s now, had an argument about that a few months ago, because Dad said to Mum, God, you've got a lot of shoes, Margaret. And she opened his cupboard. He said, we won't worry about discussing it anymore. He had 3 more pairs than what she had. So, but when you look at, especially if you're in business where you're wearing different outfits, suits, and then if you're involved in sport, it's a different lot of clothing you wear. You'd be surprised how much it would take to replace what's in your wardrobes. Like, how much is a pair of socks these days? Men? $30. So how many pairs of socks would you have?
Well, the boys bought them home for the field days, that's all I know.
Oh, okay, but if you had to replace them, say 10 pairs of socks, at $30 a pair, right? And then you put your undies with it, singlets.
What if you don't wear undies?
Well, you just saved on your insurance. Right? But as you said, your socks are $30 a pair. So if you add those up, and then your shirts, yeah. So it ticks over pretty quick, because we usually think of contents as in like tables, chairs, all of those type of things. Who has an office in their house? Right. So how much is that office worth? Computers, printer. If you have a scanner, if you buy photocopy paper, if you have a pinboard, if you have a desk, if you look at each room in your house, well, it definitely soon adds up. And that's what we've found in a lot of the floods. People were underinsured. And it was the basics that they were underinsured for. Yeah. Okay, so important documents. That's, well, insurance, as we've been talking about. It's good to sort of go back and look at it quite regularly. Important documents. If you were out of town today and you weren't getting back here because you went for a trip overseas and there was an incident, does anybody else know where your important documents are? that could go there and collect them. Right, so say if they're in a safe and you have, and I hope you never do, have a flood like Eugara had. A lot of those residents had safes, but they don't know where they are because it just picked up everything. And it literally threw everything around. Just, if you need to step out because of what we're discussing, just step out, okay? Yeah, because using Eugara, there was things that were found 50 k's away, right? So, and the big thing that we've found, because we've worked with a lot of those residents to sort of get back on their feet, a lot of people were carrying copies of their documents, and even up north, in all the emergencies I've seen, people carry photocopies of their documents, and none of them are worth the copy that you've done. Does anybody know why they're worthless? It's because I'm a JP for the town too, so. It's because they're not certified. Right? So that's the only way you can use copies to get anything replaced or to get a new copy of your insurance and all of those type of things. The things that you need identification for. So I don't know how many JPs that are in Narromine, but when you're doing your plan, if you do your plan, photocopy all the things that you would need, like your licence, and it might be your passport, birth certificates, and you can't use your marriage certificate unless it's the official one. You can't use the one the priest gave you. But birth certificates and all of those documents, legal documents, photocopy them and get them certified. But where would you store those certified copies? In your house?
No,
Where would you store it?
somewhere else.
Yeah. So where mine are stored, up the Central Coast, because the chances of the Central Coast and Peak Hill having it at the same time is pretty remote. And I keep a copy of my cousins. So either one of us, if something happens, we can start again. So that's, if I get you to think anything else, that is a major one, because it's stressful enough to go through an emergency without then being told, yeah, it's good that you photocopied them, but that doesn't help us at all. No? Okay? All right, so they're sort of your important documents, and it's the same like you might keep your will at the solicitor's. Does the solicitor live in the same town? All right? Same thing, a certified copy of that document. You would still go to the original if the solicitor, you're able to get to the solicitor. But when it picks up a whole town and just destroys it, well then, yeah, you can, and it, because it's, as I said, it's stressful, but we've found with people that are prepared more, it's a lot easier on the family to recover, and which is what we've sort of, when we sit down with people, I know when I sit down with people and have a conversation after something's been devastating, the first thing they say to me, and every time it's the first thing they say, is we should have been prepared, or we should have did this, or we should have did that. We'll do that next time. How many of you have said that? I'll do that. I'll get around to it. Yeah. And as we said earlier, emergencies are completely changing. Next, please. So get packing. So this is an individual sort of get packing. So I have an emergency kit at home, but because the husband gets rid of me onto the road all the time, I have one that I carry with me. All right. So in my little kit is a hat, a first aid kit, a pair of pyjamas and socks. The reason being, I live in so many motels, and there's nothing worse than not having your own pyjamas and things like that. So, and then like toothpaste, shampoo, all of that, comb. Then I have just a writing book. And then I don't know whether anybody in this room, the men probably don't do these, but dot to dot. It's like a picture and you do dots, so that'd sort of keep my mind off. And this JP, if I'm travelling, this goes with me. Right? I carry that everywhere. And then I have a bear. Right? Beg your pardon?
A little red cross there.
Yes, it is a little Red Cross bear. So we have so many knitters that knit the Red Cross bears. 35 years this year that they've been going. I have a band of volunteers that knit them. Some knit what we call the skins, just the outside of them. Some stuff them. Some do the eyes. And then in the group that I look after, and I'll pass this around because it's a bit hard if you can't see it. The tag is always hand sewn. If you have a look. And in my area, guess who has to do the tags? Just, yeah, so there's no machine sewing in these bears whatsoever. So, and they go through a process. So if they're not allowed to be too soft, not allowed to be too stiff, all of those things. We have bear proofers, we call them, where they sort of check, because you don't want, because kids throw them around and whatever, you don't want a child to be injured if another sibling has come here and whacked you on the head with the bear. Yeah, you don't want them to be injured. And the other reason for the bears, that's what I was talking about.
All right.
Sewing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's pretty neat. I must have been doing it early. The other reason for these bears, when I'm talking to people and they've just been rescued, people don't know what to do with their hands. So they might be trying to annihilate my little bears. But they're flexible, they bounce back. And once a person's hands are utilised doing stuff, you can talk to them. You know? Because if you don't have anything to do with your hands, what do you do with it? Yeah, you're sort of moving them, and in a tense situation, you're sort of clenching them, which then you realise you're clenching them, so your mind goes to, what do I do now? Whereas this, they can just do whatever they like and continue to talk. So that's my little man. I must have left the other one out. I've got one other one that a lady knitted that we're not allowed to hand out to anybody because she put eyes in the back of his head. And because when I said to her, she said, oh, you better just keep that in your kit because it won't pass the knitting stage. And I said, why'd you put eyes in the back of the head? And she said, oh, I just thought it'd be a laugh for someone anyway. So I carry it with me, so it must be still in the car. But as I said, that's my kit when I travel, because if I'm travelling, I've already got a bag of stuff that I take as well. But if I get stranded, so the last lot of floods at Moree, they'd put us up in a motel, and when we got there, the motel was in the middle of the flood. So that happens. It's never flooded on that side of the town. So we ended up on the floor in a lovely person's garage, the other volunteer and myself, and that's where we sort of slept for the week. So, yeah. All right. Okay, next page. So, where are we at? Yeah, so you can flick through that one. I think now that you're all thinking about what you would pack, and the conversation, so having that conversation with your neighbours or family, sitting down and really having a conversation, not just sort of a quick get together. And it's going through your book as well, because to make sure your insurance is up to date, all of those type of things. And this book can't be done just like that. It's something that you need to really think about, and it's something that you need to go back to. As I said, if you were buying everything you own today to replace it, it's not going to be the same price it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago. All right? So, and we've found with everything Red Cross does, a resilient community, once you start sharing your knowledge, there's how many in this room have learnt something from someone else and said, oh, I never thought of doing that. You know? Yeah, that's right. Otherwise we'd be still living the way we were 50 years ago. So it's that continual conversation. And as I said, our communities are changing. We're getting a lot of city people that have moved up here, those type of things. So does Narromine community have community days? Get to know your neighbour days or anything like that? No, it's pretty quiet. So, and as I said, I only gave a Christmas card and it got handed back to me. So it's whether you take the initiative to say, oh, hello, I live at such and such, how long have you been in town? And that person will probably say, oh, 10 years, something like that. Yeah, it's amazing how the towns have changed. Right. And we've found if groups work together and the town works together, so that might be with the LEMC. How am I going for time? I can talk underwater. Am I right still? Okay. So does anybody in this room ever speak to somebody from the LEMCs, the Local Emergency Management Committees? Yeah? So one in this whole room? Two? Right. So rural fireys?
Yeah,
Yeah?
28 years as captain.
Okay. So you'd be talking to people all the time?
We're first responders.
Right. So do you talk to community members about what you do?
What we did, especially for house fires, we run nights on what people, train the kids, you know, what to do in a fire, and muster point,
Yeah. Yeah.
never to go back in, and make sure. We had one instance where we found 2 kids in a cupboard,
Yeah.
and we're lucky we got them. We did that for a long time.
Mm.
Just observing now, when I went to school there was 900 students and we all learned to swim.
Yeah.
We've got a case now with one of the Narromine schools, and at North Dubbo School have missed out on their swimming lessons, which is a tragedy
Yeah, yeah,
for the kids. And, you know, like to have a swim in the river, to ski,
yeah.
go to surf, and that's essential. And we're trying to do something about that as well.
Oh, right, okay, all right. Yeah, because who swung off a bridge into a river here? Oh, that'd be me. I always tried to kill myself all the time.
Yeah, you always did. If you had a swing in a river, you know, we had 7 boys where we were, and we'd all fathers that checked the river first.
Yeah, but would you let your grandkids do that today?
Probably,
Probably?
yeah.
No.
Oh, they're sure more sure than what we were, but
Yeah.
they've got to live a bit.
Well, that's, yeah, yeah.
A few months
But you'd go with them, wouldn't you now?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Whereas, I know my grandparents, you had to be out of the house when the sun come up and in the house when the sun went down. And because they were on a farm at Yeovil, and so we sort of went all day. And I look at my grandkids now and I think, oh my God, I wouldn't let my grandkids do. You let them do a certain amount, but to think, and because I learned to drive, a group of us learnt to drive by getting in our old battered utes, and it was one person's job to pull the handbrake on while you were driving at 50 mile an hour. And if you survived the spin, well, you were going to get your licence. So, and when I went for my licence, the nice sergeant was when, this will show me age as well, changing over from miles to kilometres. And when we got back to the police station, he said, now drive legally instead of illegally. Because we all learnt to drive that way. Kids these days don't. They don't, there's a lot of things they don't get to do to experiment or anything else. And because we have so many new people coming to town that have never had that chance either. Not that I'd want any of my grandkids to do what I ever did. All right, so starting that conversation is always good. Any sort of conversation is good. So next page. All right. So the reflections and next steps. So the completing of your ready plan, but as I said, don't just go straight through it and just tick it. Take your time. It might take you a month or so to really think about it. Continue to get in the know about the local hazards and risks. And not only in your area, if you're going away on holidays, get a bit of knowledge about where you're going. You don't have to know where evacuation centres are going to be or anything else, but that bit of knowledge, that bit of research, so you know where you're going and what's possible. Continue to connect with your neighbours in your community. So needless to say, there's another Christmas card going out to that neighbour this year from me. So continue to share and have conversations about preparing for emergencies, and then pack an emergency kit. But as I said, think about definitely the JP signage and have your most important documents stored with you and somewhere else. So, and it can make all the difference to how you get started again. So, because there's nothing worse than being told, oh yeah, I know, I can see everything photocopied, but sorry, we can't use it. And then, because that causes angst with the government organisation, but their hands are tied because that's their job. They can help you as much as they can, but they can't let you use documents that they're not allowed to. All right. So all of that is what you investigate, sort of research and things like that. It's if you look at it, it's really no different to the research you'd do if you were buying a new car or a new header. You wouldn't just go, oh, I need a new car, and ring up somebody and say, can you deliver whatever you got? You know, it's basically the same thing. It's about being prepared. You're not going to buy a car unsighted. Virtually, you get home and it's a Mini and you've got 6 kids. Well, yeah. So it's same with you're not going to buy clothes unless you see them, or furniture unless you know whether it covers your purpose of what you want. Thank you very much.
I'll ask a question, how do you go for volunteers?
How do we go for volunteers? We're really struggling for volunteers. And some of it's because the government brought in a different way to sort of bring volunteers on. They have to go online and do all this work. And so at the moment I'm pushing to go back to the old way so that we can, yes, definitely a police check and working with children check and things like that. But then teach them on the ground so that they learn as they're doing stuff, so that they're not coming out computer geniuses and then the first time you take them to an evacuation centre and they fall apart. Because I've had, like, up at Moree, the emergency that I worked on up there, it was 2 elders that had passed away when I was up there, and they got one elder's body back for the funeral, but the other elder, the floods hit and they couldn't get her back, but the opposite families made it. So it was like a powder keg. And in the evacuation centre, it was really like a powder keg. We sort of had to devise a way to get them to sit long enough so that accommodation could be organised for them and that sort of stuff. And yelling at people and doing all that sort of stuff just doesn't work. So I did the dumbest thing that I've ever done. No, we're not recording that, are we? No. Thank you. It wasn't really dumb. It worked, but it was the silliest idea I'd ever had, because we had seating and people would get up to go and have a smoke or whatever, and someone else would sit in that seat. So it started causing like a powder keg. I was only joking about recording.
No, say what you
Yeah, so I had to come up with a way so that the seats wouldn't get taken. So we could still have people in line to go, because they were all looking for accommodation. So me being such a tall person, I just stood in the middle of them. I said, I have no idea how to work out what we're going to do. So the only thing I can think of, we're going to go in a conga line. And everybody just went. And one gentleman, he came over and swore his head off. We're not do that. And I said, you come up with a better idea than that. So in the finish, they sang that conga song. Every time somebody went over to DCJ to see about housing or whatever, in the finish, they just all said, okay, everybody conga, and they all moved, and it worked. But if I was to do that somewhere else, it wouldn't work. So we sort of get creative, Red Cross get creative with that type of stuff, because otherwise it was going to be a brawl, because it was so volatile because of the situation. Some emergency evacuation centres, they're set out, they're organised, nothing goes wrong, you just come in, give your name and off you go. But others, when they're being slapped together, you've got to come up with different ways to sort of deal with them. So, and you'd find that with volunteers and things like that. You take from a volunteer their quality, and that's how we say to a volunteer, can you go on the front counter, taking names and talking to people and doing that psychological first aid, because they're just somebody that calms people down. Whereas I'm sort of such an individual, I normally get thrown in the chaos side of it, because that's just how they see my expertise is I calm people down, but in ridiculous ways though. So yeah. So no, there's no right, there's no wrong. It's all about the safety and the well-being
Common sense.
and common sense of who you're looking
It's
after.
vital, but we're to face a volunteer drought
Yeah,
critically, like
Yeah.
in frontline services, it will be catastrophic when
Yeah.
it does happen, but it will.
and the thing now that we're finding, young ones often say to us, we'd really love to volunteer for you, but we can't give up our holidays because we've got 3 kids. So they've got to go to school and that type of thing. So I'm fighting to get even Red Cross volunteers classified the same as all the other emergency services.
Yep.
But even then, it's not enough for the amount of emergencies we've sort of had. And young ones get involved in sport, like I'm the zone coordinator for Little Athletics for Western Region. So parents will get involved in what their kids are involved in, which means they're probably doing 5 or 6 sports and things like that. So then to get them to, say, go to Moree for a week to be in an evacuation centre, well, they've got to have really a good support system at home that somebody's going to come and look after the kids and do all the stuff that they would normally do.